One of the ways of entering awareness, or presence, or non-thinking, one of the portals that provides the simplest access to this dimension. You know it very well. I have spoken of it before, yet it always sounds like something fresh, new. It is to inwardly anchor yourself in the present moment, so that a friendly relationship is established with the suchness of whatever arises within it. Whatever it may be, instead of inner argument, instead of dissatisfaction, denial, instead of fleeing into thoughts somewhere else and experiencing unhappiness from not being there, I often use the expression, make the present moment your friend. Many live as if the present moment were their enemy, something that must be conquered. The present moment is an obstacle on my path. I do not want to be here. I want to be there. Everything that is here only interferes with me on my way. But what is here? It is life. Because life, in whatever form it manifests, is inseparable from the present moment. Life can manifest only in the present moment. Nowhere else is there anything at all. If I treat the present as I have just described as an enemy or as an obstacle, even as a stepping stone toward a supposedly better moment, then I am not living in inner alignment with what is. In other words, for you there is no difference between the state of an ordinary human being with their usual madness and the state of a master. A master, whether he or she, it does not matter. A master is neutral. A master lives in complete alignment with the present moment, accepting all that is. Why? Because it already is. Of course, a situation can be changed, but the most effective foundation for change will be the prior acceptance of suchness, because without acceptance you will not be able, in a truly intelligent way, to bring about genuinely effective change. The denial of the present moment, the non-acceptance of it, which is always a form of resistance, blocks the flow of creativity that comes from your deeper level. Thus, resistance to what is, treating it as an obstacle or an enemy, dissatisfaction, irritation, all of this ultimately condemns you. It does not matter how educated you are, 2 academic degrees will not help here. You condemn yourself to unenlightened, foolish actions. If one uses this word to describe a broad class of behaviors into which any actions may fall. The habit of constant thinking is greatly intensified by this ongoing resistance. Resistance itself consists of the hyperactivity of the mind, which pulls you out of the present moment. When you practice anchoring yourself in the suchness of what is, change comes quickly, it arises. This simple spiritual practice helps you enter the space of awareness into non-thinking. The hyperactivity of the mind is connected with resistance to the suchness of what is now. In many people, resistance is so habitual that they do not even know they are resisting. It is like background noise that has surrounded a person for so long. Continuous resistance leads to a sense of the difficulty of life. A person does not feel at home where they are. Existentialist philosophers speak of this as being thrown into the world, as alienation, as being in a foreign country. I do not belong to what is here. I do not fit into what is happening. Something is wrong. All of this is the result of not being anchored in the suchness of the present moment, the consequence of not being aligned with it. Of course, many things arise in the present moment. Everything can become a challenge, a limitation of your life. There are no forms of life free from limitations. They can be great. For example, being born into a poor family, or being born into a body with physical impairments, or being born to overly unconscious parents. It is a great limitation for a child to live with insane parents. Insane in a broad sense, that is, unconscious. Millions of parents still remain unconscious. Birth itself is an entry into limitation. Even being born into a wealthy family has its difficulties. A child is born into a large mansion, yet the parents are completely emotionally unavailable and often send their child to boarding school at the age of 7. Materially, everything is well, but essential areas of life are suppressed. Growing up, such a person will for a long time try to cope with what life has given them in childhood. Limitation arises at any moment of life and becomes a component of the present moment. In adult life, the trials continue. Suddenly, misfortune befalls you. You lose your job. Your husband or wife leaves you. An illness is unexpectedly discovered. Life does not leave you alone for long. Nevertheless, many believe that it is possible to live without being subjected to life's challenges. Why does life not leave me in peace? I want a quiet, peaceful life, and here comes one damn event after another. It seems as though life was not designed for peace, because if it were arranged for that, it would be easy to avoid all its challenges and limitations. Someone may think, if I were God, I would make human life simpler and more pleasant. No one would have to suffer. I would remove suffering from life altogether. Wow, that would be life. Many stop believing in God. They say that, of course, they had a childish image of God as an old man who controls everything, who is prone to obvious anger, who warns you, I am the only God. If you worship anyone else, you will suffer even more than before. You had better believe in me. Of course, to imagine God with such a character is a childish view of the supreme intelligence underlying the universe. If I were God, I would free people from all suffering. It certainly sounds wonderful, but strangely enough, if you look at what true good actually is, I am not saying that suffering is good. That may anger some, for whom suffering is a serious, unresolved problem. If life had no limitations, if everything I needed were given instantly, and life were simple and pleasant, then what would become of the process of human evolution, of the development of consciousness? Within each individual form, the one consciousness evolves, developing through billions of life forms. There would be no evolution, only pleasant pastime, a self-satisfied state of superficial enjoyment from sensory experience, from food. No other needs, no questions, no impulse to go deeper beyond the surface of reality. Everything is so good there is nothing to seek. Everything is wonderful. If you look at this from the outside, you will understand that if your life had been without suffering in one form or another, you would not be here today. Without problems and challenges in life, would you be here? I know that I would not be here. I would be sitting somewhere in front of a television. Suffering has an unusual role in the life of an individual. If you look at your own life, each of us is called forth by life in a unique way. There are certain general patterns of challenge from the universe, but each of you, including myself, is tested by life differently, and this is very interesting. As I have already said, many live with the assumption, silent or even entirely unconscious, that a life free from limitations is desirable, perhaps somewhere out there, where, once reached, there will be no more problems. Or they believe that something is wrong with their life because it constantly presents them with challenges. They believe it should not be this way, not realizing that the destiny of every human being is to be tested in one form or another. This phenomenon is well described in the book The Road Less Traveled. It begins with the words, "Life is difficult." There is no doubt about this. This is the first thing we must accept. Then comes the understanding that this is a universal truth, not a matter of perception like, my personal life is difficult. It is an essential part of life, to be subjected to challenges, to trials. Not only human beings, any form of life, every species of living creature is constantly subjected to threats, limitations, obstacles. This appears to be the fundamental pattern of physical existence. Challenges are an essential ingredient of the manifestation of life, an inseparable property of the path by which it unfolds. Consciousness awakens only because it is challenged. It becomes somewhat easier when you understand that being tested is normal. It is meant to be this way. There is something wrong with my life. This should not be happening. If you act under the assumption that this should not be, you truly become unhappy. The challenge transforms into suffering, into unhappiness within you. If not unhappiness, then resistance. If not resistance, then irritation or self-pity, dissatisfaction, a loss of spirit. And the reason is simple: a misunderstanding of the very purpose of life, an expectation that it should conform to what your mind has imagined, that everything should be different. Thus, it is necessary to realize that receiving life's challenges is an integral part of being alive. You accept this fact. The key word here is acceptance. Challenges, of course, arise in the present moment. You accept and continue to live. Moreover, you welcome the next events entering the field of your awareness. You do not say, "Oh no, not another challenge of life. Leave me alone." In this way, you meet life's challenges in a completely different manner. You understand, this is life. And unexpectedly, challenges cease to turn into unhappiness. All of their energy is directed into intelligence. You either overcome an obstacle on the plane of limitation, or you set it aside and develop something else. In the first example, there is overcoming within the sphere of limitation. A person with physical difficulties develops physical strength through training. In the second example, a person with a weak physical body develops other abilities. To compensate for limitations in one area, a person develops capacities in another. Many people who have reached great heights in life either directly counteracted their limitations, as, for example, the famous orator of ancient Greece, Demosthenes. In ancient Greece, to be an orator was considered a great achievement. This man was born with a speech defect. No one could understand what he was saying, as if he had a mouthful of mush. Legend has it that, as a boy, he would go to the seashore, put small pebbles in his mouth, and shout phrases out to the sea for hours, gradually developing the ability for clear speech. Confronting the limitation brought a great deal of energy into being. He became one of the outstanding orators of Greece, a man born with a speech defect. Evolution takes place. This is how the universe manifests itself outwardly. A challenge arises, energy increases. All life forms, in the process of evolution, are subjected to the challenges of life. Limitations are constantly erected. Everything we overcome is a way of responding to a challenge. This is part of the evolution of the universe. It is part of the two movements of the universe. One is the movement outward. The universe seeks to create more and more forms. These life forms gradually become more and more differentiated, more developed, more capable of participating in the purposes of the universe. The other movement is the transcendence of limitation, the acceptance of it, and, instead of overcoming in the external sphere, the redirection of your attention inward and the becoming inwardly free from what outwardly appears as limitation. For example, a person with physical difficulties. In childhood, everyone laughed at him. Perhaps he will not become a great writer or a computer expert. Perhaps he simply withdraws into his inner space and disidentifies from the body. His sense of I no longer arises from his unsatisfactory physical form, and suddenly he realizes his essential identity consciousness itself. Inwardly, he or she becomes free from limitations without any need for external change. This way of responding to challenges is connected with a particular movement of the universe, which could be called a return movement. The universe wants two things. On the one hand, it creates an ever greater number of forms, the movement of birth, the emergence of increasingly complex and increasingly conscious forms. And on the other hand, the universe seeks to return to its source and to know itself in its fullness. Knowing itself is the return movement, the return into itself. When you look into your own depth, you discover both tendencies. Perhaps they are equally developed. One may predominate over the other. Yet you can notice within yourself that, on the one hand, you want to accomplish something in this world, to create something, and on the other hand, you seek inner peace, a quiet, joyful state of being. At times you do not know which path to follow. Do I want to become a hermit, or do I want to become a business person and create something? Should you go to a monastery and you go there, but on the other hand you feel a certain lack of fulfillment, an incompleteness in your being? To sit and meditate every day and think, and yet I could be accomplishing great things. And if you are in business, you sit at your desk and think, and yet I could be in a monastery right now, there is real silence and peace there. So, life has presented you with a challenge. It can either be overcome or transcended, but there is no need to choose only one. You can unite both paths into one. If you remain only at the level of overcoming, then in the end you will be dissatisfied, no matter how much effort you put into achieving your goal. People strive to rise above limitations. There are many inspiring films, some of them based on real events, on the stories of people who have done exactly that. There is a common expression: difficulties fall upon a person from all sides, and in the end he overcomes them with the exclamation, "I did it!" He is in triumph. Everyone admires him. Then he grows old. The business is sold. Another large company buys it out. The assets are dispersed. In other words, success does not last long. This does not mean that you should not overcome. At certain stages of life, people are filled with the desire to win. A person who becomes a well-known cyclist has an immense drive to achieve victory. It is so strong that he is ready for anything. He generates an extraordinary amount of energy within himself. If it is not enough, various substances are introduced into the body to produce even more. In the end, he wins many times in his competitions, 6 times and more. Because he took stimulants to have more energy, he develops cancer. He has achieved much in life, yet still there is a feeling that it is not enough, that more is needed. Now, when he has realized and accepted all of this, transcendent dimensions enter his life. Only in the transcendent dimension, when you have disidentified from all of this, does your sense of self-worth no longer arise from external achievements. It comes from the depth of being. I offer this case only as an example. In enlightened people like you, what the enlightened path will be for many of you depends largely on the stages of your life, on various circumstances. But in most cases, there is a union of efforts applied on the external level, with a certain relinquishment of the fruits of your efforts. Such non-attachment to the fruits of your labor is possible only when you go inward and discover who you are, that which is deeper than all physical or psychological forms associated with external achievements. Our teaching is primarily about this. It is not about overcoming outwardly, although this is sometimes mentioned, since action is a part of life, but the emphasis is on transcending limitations. If you wish to focus on overcoming the external, I recommend Tony Robbins, because he is very successful in this direction. I am sure that he has helped many people. I am planning to have a short session with him and to see how a person who emphasizes external overcoming will interact with one who emphasizes transcending. How will these approaches work together, if that is possible? Outwardly, he is large and tall. Some of his seminars last up to 10 hours. He moves rapidly across the stage, constantly sending energy into the audience. People think they can imitate him, but of course they cannot, because he is an expression of the forces of nature, so they can take only a little from him. Thus, he teaches how to overcome the external. Perhaps he also sometimes suggests transcending, I do not know. Just as I sometimes mention overcoming the external, But the emphasis, of course, is on transcending. Bring both approaches together. That is, when you make efforts on the external level, do not totally identify yourself with the result, with what you would like to achieve, as your sense of I then depends on whether you succeed or not. You condemn yourself to frustration if your happiness and fullness of life depend on the results of your actions. Because even if you succeed, in the end it may turn into failure, for success is temporary. You have developed a unique computer. It will be good only until someone creates another computer that makes yours completely obsolete, and all your sense of I will be shattered. My achievements, or for example, you became a renowned pianist. You overcame great limitations, whatever they may have been in childhood. You practiced and became famous. Wonderful. Everyone admires you. Glowing articles appear in the press about your concerts, but suddenly a condition in your fingers and you can no longer play. It is unfortunate, but nothing more than that. If the pianist is not identified with his status, with his achievements, he will say, well, okay, all is well. However, if he is identified, then it is a tragedy, a terrible tragedy. We return to anchoring yourself in the present moment. If you are inwardly aligned with the present, you can give more attention not only to the things that have already come into your life, but also to those you are creating. They arise from a state of peaceful alignment with life, not from a state of irritated resistance, where your I, your happiness, your sense of fullness in life depend on the result. In other words, if you take joy in what you are doing, the action itself becomes self-realization. The fruits of your labor may come, or they may not. Success may accompany it, or it may not. There is a certain non-attachment to action in this. This brings in a transcendent dimension. Your sense of I does not depend on achievements, on position, on what others think of you. All of that is external. This is precisely what the Bhagavad Gita recommends: non-attachment to the results of action. The fruits mean the results. Usually, people focus their attention on the result. In their thoughts, they are already there, where they want to arrive. That is where most of their attention goes. Action loses its joy and turns into stress. Life becomes joyless. You work hard without enjoying it because you are striving to get somewhere. Where you are now brings you doubt. But even if you reach the place you desire, you still will not be joyful. Wherever you go, your old patterns go with you. You will remain dissatisfied, and yet you thought something new would happen. So, the challenge is not to fall into the ironic assumption that it should not have been this way. Be with it. Follow life not in a half-asleep state, and observe how you meet its challenges. The emphasis can be placed either on overcoming or on transcending, depending on your age, on who you are, on the stage of life you are in. In the book A New Earth, I use the expression keepers of purity, describing people who are more inclined toward transcending rather than overcoming through active doing. These are people who are drawn to a quiet way of being, who perform simple work, tending a garden or doing modest work in an office. Or they may own a small shop, run a small craft business, sell handmade goods, and are content with that. Wonderful. A keeper of purity is happy to work in a small pottery workshop. He does not think, one day I will build the greatest pottery empire the world has ever seen. He does not need that. It is enough to be present. Presence flows into everything you do. You work with a special care, and your presence fills the objects you create. Anyone who holds them can feel how much attention has gone into their making. The presence of consciousness is felt. Another keeper of purity loves working in nature with animals again, without dreams of great achievements. He does not think in those terms. He is happy doing this. Wonderful. I call such people keepers of purity because they sustain the purity of presence. In earlier times, by their way of life, they would have been called contemplatives. In another historical period, they might have lived in a monastery. In our time, relatively few people live in monasteries. Now, this has become outdated. Modern society does not provide special places for keepers of purity. But in the Middle Ages, in certain cultures, withdrawing into a monastery was considered a normal and highly respected choice. So, you may be a keeper of purity, but for most people this is an extreme way of living. By the way, keepers of purity need to be attentive. They carefully arrange their lives in such a way that life ceases to challenge them. They have cleared out everything that could be cleared. The danger is that the subtle degree of presence, its flow into what you do, begins to weaken. Routine sets in. In other words, having begun from a state beyond thought, before you even notice it, you may find yourself in a state below thought, and after 20 years become dull and sluggish. You are no longer a keeper of purity, although you may gloomily repeat, "I am a keeper of purity." Vigilance is required. If there are no challenges in your life, if for several years you have not encountered any trials, then the very absence of challenges becomes a great challenge. So there is no escape. When a challenge arises, you look at it, you give it your full attention. Now the question is, to transcend or to overcome? Overcoming is action directed at changing the situation. Transcending means inner detachment. Inwardly, you remain free, at peace, even though outwardly something may not look very good. If you are put in prison, whether you are guilty or not, let us set that aside. You sit in a cell. I take an extreme example, but unfortunately this example applies to more than 2 million people in this country. It is terrible. You sit in a cell and decide to overcome or to transcend. If you choose to overcome, you look around for a weak latch on the window. What can I do to get out of here? In films, this is more interesting than in life. I receive letters from those who have found liberation through transcending. I have not yet received a single letter from those who escaped from prison. Transcending means that the situation forcibly focuses your attention on the present moment. You ask yourself, can I accept this moment as it is? Why must you accept it? Because it already is. You accept it completely, and awakened perception arises. Thoughts recede. There is no self-image, such as, unfortunate I, sitting in prison for another 10 or 20 years. I will be here for the rest of my life. Terrible thoughts. I will be here, it does not matter for how long. These thoughts generate deep suffering. Prisoners have noticed that whenever they think about this, they begin to suffer intensely. Then some of them let go of these thoughts, which means they let go of the future. They let go of time, because when they are in time, which is nothing more than a product of the mind, they suffer, and they remain in the present moment. When they leave the present into the past, thinking about what they have done, or into the future, intense suffering arises. Thus, the situation forces them to be in the present moment. Here, there is no suffering. Here, there is intense life energy, a clearly felt peace. This is transcendence inwardly. They are free. They no longer think about the rest of their life. There is no such thing as the rest of life. There is only the present moment. This is true for everyone, but most people have the luxury of indulging in thoughts about the rest of their life. Yet there is no such thing as the rest of life, except in the mind. There is only the present moment. Only those people who have encountered a global challenge, of course. Not every prisoner is capable of transcending, only a small percentage, but the potential exists. Many do not know this. No one has told them, yet the possibility is there. The same situation arises when someone is given a diagnosis, a serious illness with a potentially fatal outcome. The doctor says, 12 months, and a terrible shock follows. All thoughts about the future become absurd because suddenly life has brought you into the present. The meaning of thinking about the future disappears. In this situation, you are thrust into the present moment. I have met several people who went through this experience and became completely awakened because they transcended this extreme challenge. Their life came to fulfillment. Consciousness blossomed. This would not have happened had they not faced an outwardly terrible challenge of life. The other day, I was reading BBC News on my iPad, an interview with an English rock musician whose name I did not know. He had just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, a disease that is very difficult to treat. He had about a year left to live. He said that transcendence happened to him the moment he learned his diagnosis. He left the doctor's office in a state of euphoria. He began to experience the present so intensely that it displaced everything else. He said, "Usually I was worried about something, there were always problems, and suddenly I realized how unimportant all of that was. I walked down the street, looked at the leaves, the trees, every blade of grass on the lawn. Everything was so alive. Why didn't I do this before? Why did I have to come to this edge? I am in euphoria." This is a very rare case. Usually, people sink even deeper into suffering. Some remain in suffering, while others are capable of transcending, of the flowering of their consciousness. Instant transcendence, when the doctor told him he had no future, a very rare case. I had never heard of anything like it before. I was so struck by that interview that I sent it to my friends. An incredible case of transcendence. A person in a similar situation may say, "What can I do?" It would be best to combine, continue searching for alternative treatment, try this or that. And at the same time, you can surrender, accept what is, and no longer leave the present moment. Because as soon as I fall out of the present, I suffer. I can try alternative treatments, why not? I can overcome the illness and at the same time transcend it inwardly. One does not exclude the other. In the case of a prisoner, the path of transcendence is likely possible as long as there are no weak points in the security. Look at your own life and decide where to place the emphasis when life's challenges arise. In an astonishing way, you begin to welcome difficulties and limitations, because behind them, there is always the awakening of consciousness. Behind everything that appears negative, there is, in potential, what in the spiritual tradition is called grace. This is another misunderstood word. Grace is the redemptive factor that stands behind everything that appears to be a terrible limitation. This applies to all of humanity if you see it as a single developing organism, as one consciousness in the process of awakening. Ultimately, there is no individual life in the sense of mine, my life, belonging to me. This is a false perception that leads to suffering. Your life is not yours, because it is a temporary expression of the one consciousness, an expression of the one life. It cannot be yours, because you are not separate from life. You are the one life. Life lives through you. You are alive through it. You are life. Life is awakening in this dimension. You are part of the single process of awakening. Nothing is lost. No developed consciousness is lost. It becomes part of the collective consciousness of all humanity. Nothing disappears. All realized consciousness is here. It is part of the awakening process. No one denies that there is much suffering on earth. I am not saying that suffering should continue. Humanity is approaching a stage of evolution where suffering is no longer necessary in the conventional, commonly accepted sense of the word. It all begins with you, when you realize that life's challenges do not need to be turned into suffering. This is how the end of suffering begins. Life's challenges continue to arise, but there is no need to transform them into suffering. They can be transformed into awakening, into an increase of your vitality. This is good news, is it not? Let us return to what was said in the first sentence of the book, The Road Less Traveled. Life is difficult. And let us add, it is necessary to accept that life is difficult, and then it is no longer difficult. These are my words. Only the non-acceptance of the fact that difficulty is an inherent quality of the state of being alive makes you unhappy. A shift occurs in the way you live your life. You no longer demand that life leave you in peace. You do not complain that it has treated you unfairly. Why I remember my patterns of reaction that formed in childhood around the age of 12. For many years I had negative thoughts in one form or another. They would come, then go, and then return again. Why do only bad things happen to me, while for others it is not so? My parents' divorce. At that time, it was quite common. Much suffering was connected with it, a lack of money. If some new unpleasant event occurred, of course it happened to me. It went on and on. I did not understand that these thoughts had their own power to attract other unpleasant events. No one told me this. Finally, when things became truly unbearable, I was 29, then the entire structure of thought dissolved. I could no longer endure it. I realized that the bad was mostly in my mind. Transcendence occurred. But before that, like everyone, I tried to overcome difficulties through action. I think you may find this interesting. I left school at 14. I could not stand it and refused to go. By the age of 20, I found a job. I worked for 4 years. Then I thought that I was no worse than those who study at university. I decided to apply there. I began attending evening preparatory classes. At that time, I was living in England. I worked and studied very intensely, proving to everyone and to myself that I was good enough, despite having left school at 14. Finally, I entered university and received a grant. I had paid taxes regularly for 4 years, so I became eligible for it. I actively overcame every obstacle, but the more I overcame them, the more unhappy I became. The increase in unhappiness went hand in hand with the efforts applied to overcoming. I was successful in my achievements. After receiving high marks on my exams, I began preparing to apply to University of Cambridge. A great accomplishment. My mother was delighted. The happiness lasted about half a year then. Once again, unhappiness. After that, transcendence occurred, and the striving to overcome came to an end. All achievements lost their importance. Whether something worked out or not, it was no longer so significant. When overcoming, one must be attentive so that it goes hand in hand with transcending. If you remain only at the level of overcoming, it often leads to stress and unhappiness. You succeed, yet you are unhappy, because it is a superficial happiness. I did it, but in reality, you do not feel happy. There is no joy. A voice from the audience. Then why your idea with Tony Robinson? With Tony Robinson, it is simply an experiment to bring together two extreme approaches. What will happen when they meet? You know the graphical symbol of yin and yang. In the middle of the black field there is a white dot, and in the middle of the white a black one. In his teaching there is a portion of transcending, even though the focus of his attention is entirely outward. And in my teaching, I also sometimes speak of active engagement in life, but do not place the emphasis on it. It is not so important whether our meeting will take place. It simply happened that one day, I said to Oprah Winfrey, "Perhaps we could sit down together with Tony Robinson?" "Okay, I will arrange it," she replied. And there is an interesting phenomenon. She has a balance between what truly matters, the maintenance of connection with the dimension of transcendence, with stillness and effectiveness in action. exactly in the middle. I know her energy and activity are greater than mine. She can go on and on and on. And I say, that's it. I can't anymore. Few people have this balance. With age, there is usually a tendency toward transcending rather than continuous doing. Perhaps in 10 years, when even more has been accomplished, she will move more toward transcendence. It is very interesting to observe other people how they try on both tendencies, and especially interesting to see how you combine them both in your own life. But I would say that it is more vital to choose transcending. It is the foundation. I believe that Jesus Christ spoke of the same thing. Remember, he visited two sisters, Martha and Mary of Bethany. Martha was busy in the kitchen, dinner not yet ready, while you sit and listen to Jesus. Mary listened, holding her breath. Jesus said, "Mary has chosen what is truly important." He was not referring to himself. He was speaking of the dimension of transcendence. I think he did not say, "Do not cook anymore." He simply pointed to what truly matters, what is the foundation of all life. From this foundation, you can overcome difficulties without losing connection with the depth of being and take joy in what you do. If success comes, good. If not, you still enjoyed the doing itself. In either case, it is also success. Everything you do with joy is success. How pleasant, simple, everyday actions become if you do not turn them into means to an end. You are only just taking a glass of water into your hands, and already you want the water to be drunk, especially if, instead of water, there is something else in the glass. But in my glass right now, there is water. Sometimes we engage in what we call a ceremony, which means it is not the result that matters to us, but the movements themselves. We take pleasure in them, the touch, the taste, the gesture of the hand placing the glass back down. No one is saying that from now on you must live your entire life this way. No, but from time to time, try it how it will enrich your life to perceive certain things differently, things you previously did not pay attention to. Ultimately, this will bring your attention into the present. Reflect on this. You can approach many things as if you were performing a tea ceremony. This idea originated in Japan. There, the tea ceremony became a ritual. Every movement is practiced. But it is better if you spontaneously generate your own tea ceremony when you drink tea or do something else, washing dishes, getting dressed. All of this can become a tea ceremony. Do not treat action as a means to achieve the next goal. Take pleasure in the doing itself and in everything involved in the process. The touch, the sounds, the sensations. From time to time during the day, why not enjoy the sensations you experience? This is not merely sensory experience. Behind it is the awareness of what you are experiencing. You do not lose yourself in sensory perceptions. Awareness. This is where fulfillment comes from. This is the true source of pleasure. Tomorrow, which does not exist, we will meet again. You will see tomorrow that it does not exist. We will meet here at 10. Once, I was in an English pub. There was a sign behind the bar. Free beer tomorrow. This will always be true, because tomorrow never comes.